You have been losing money for months, maybe years, and you are convinced it's because you haven't found the right strategy yet, the right indicator, the right setup. So you buy another course, follow another guru, memorize another system, and you lose again. Here is the truth that no trading book will ever sell you, because there is no profit in it. The strategy was never your problem. There are 3 hidden stages every trader must survive before a single dollar of consistent profit ever touches their account. And not one of them has anything to do with charts. They happen inside your skull, in the exact moment real money is bleeding out in front of your eyes. I am Jesse Livermore. I turned a handful of dollars into a fortune large enough to frighten kings, then lost all of it, made it back, and lost it again, 4 times over. And in the wreckage of those bankruptcies, I found these 3 stages. Stay with me to the end, because I am going to tell you exactly which one you are trapped in right now. And that single piece of knowledge is the difference between another year of losses and finally breaking through to the other side. Nobody tells you about the hell you have to walk through to get there. Everyone shows you the destination, the profitable trader, calm and wealthy, and nobody shows you the corpses lining the road to reach him. That is what this is about. The stages they would rather you never knew existed, because if you truly understood how brutal this journey is, before you started, most of you would never take the first step. But before we go in, do me one favor. Subscribe, hit the like, and send this to another trader who is quietly drowning right now, because the market hands out no participation trophies, and neither do I. If you are serious about this game, you are going to want every weapon I am about to put in your hands. Understand something before we go deeper. These stages are not about learning new strategies or hunting better entries. They are about transformation, about killing the parts of you that will never make money and forging something harder out of what's left. Each stage strips away another layer of illusion until nothing remains but the raw truth of who you actually are when money is on the line. You cannot rush this. You cannot skip ahead. I have watched men try to leap from the first stage straight to the third by buying somebody else's system, by paying for expensive signals, by copying a supposed expert trade for trade. Every one of them failed, without exception, because the stages were never about what you know. They are about what you become. The trader who walks out the far end is not the same man who walked in. He cannot be. The market refuses to allow it. It demands a price for success. And that price is everything you thought you knew about yourself. Only after you have paid it in full, only after you have been broken down to nothing and rebuilt, can you truly profit. So as I walk you through these 3 stages, do not just listen for the lessons. Hunt for yourself inside them. Because I promise you are living in one of them right now, whether you can see it or not, and recognizing which one is the only way out. The first stage is the slaughter of your certainty. When I first walked into a bucket shop at 14 years old, chalk dust on my hands from marking the quotation board, I was sure I had it figured out. Numbers spoke to me. Patterns rose out of the chaos of the tape like constellations out of a black sky. I was making money, while grown men around me were losing the shirts off their backs, and I decided that meant I was special, that I could see what ordinary men could not. That is exactly how it begins for everyone, and I mean everyone. You take your first winning trade, then your second, then your third, and a voice inside you whispers that you have cracked the code. The market starts to feel like a slot machine that pays out every single time you pull the handle. You are not trading anymore. You are simply collecting money, and it feels so effortless that you genuinely wonder why the whole world isn't rich. And then the market turns, not gently, not with a warning bell or a polite notice that conditions have changed. It turns like a starving animal, and it goes straight for your throat. I remember my first real beating with more clarity than I remember most of the fortunes that came later. I was certain, absolutely and completely certain, that a particular stock was going to climb. I had watched it for days. The pattern was obvious. The opportunity was screaming at me. So I went in heavy, far heavier than any sane man should have, because that is what certainty does to you. It kills your caution. When you are sure, you don't hedge, you don't hesitate, you load up, because in that state, the fear of missing easy money feels far worse than the fear of being wrong. Except I was wrong. And the market did not merely prove me wrong. It humiliated me, methodically, the way a cruel teacher humiliates a boastful student in front of the whole class. This is what the first stage does. It takes everything you believe about your own intelligence and sets it on fire while you watch. You learn that confidence is not an edge. You learn that being clever does not protect you. You learn that the market does not care about your analysis, your reasoning, or your desperate, burning need to be right about this one trade. Every trader who survives remembers this stage forever, because it is where you swallow the first great truth of this business. You know nothing. The patterns you were so proud of seeing were random noise your brain decided to dress up as meaning. The intuition you trusted was wishful thinking, wearing a costume. And the certainty you felt, that warm, delicious certainty, was the single most expensive emotion you will ever allow yourself to feel. This is where most men quit. They tell themselves the market is impossible, that the winners are all just lucky, that the entire system is rigged to strip money from ordinary people and funnel it to the insiders. They are wrong, but I understand precisely why they believe it. Because when you are certain and you still lose, it is infinitely easier to blame the game than to accept that you never learned how to play it. But for the stubborn ones, the desperate ones, the ones too proud or too broke to walk away, something begins to shift. The pain of losing slowly transforms into a different kind of teacher. You start to question everything, not just the losing trade, but your entire approach, your assumptions, your rules, your whole idea of what trading even is. And you arrive at a realization that changes you. The market is not a puzzle to be solved. It is a war to be survived. And in war, confidence gets you killed. The first stage finally ends the day you truly accept that you were never as smart as you believed, when the sting of embarrassment fades and leaves behind something far more valuable in its place. Humility. Real humility. Not the performance of it, but the genuine kind that doesn't just admit you were wrong this time, but accepts, all the way down to your bones, that you will be wrong again and again and again, and that being wrong is not failure. It is simply part of the work. But humility alone will never make you profitable. It only makes you ready for the real work, and that work begins in the second stage. The second stage is the discipline of waiting, and it is where more traders die than anywhere else, though it never looks like dying. After the market has beaten the arrogance out of you, you enter the strangest phase of your entire education. Suddenly you start seeing opportunities everywhere, and this time they are real. The fantasies of the first stage are gone, and in their place you begin to perceive the actual structure of how markets move, how they breathe in and out, how they telegraph their true intentions to anyone patient enough to simply watch. And here is the exquisite torture of the second stage. You see all these opportunities, and you absolutely know, that you must not take most of them. The single hardest skill I ever developed in my entire life was not reading a stock or forecasting a trend. It was learning how to sit still, how to watch other men make money and refuse to jump in beside them, how to let a beautiful setup drift right past me because one condition, just one, wasn't perfectly aligned. Before the Great Panic, I watched the market for months. I could feel something building beneath the surface, something rotten in the way the stocks were moving. The smart money was quietly distributing. The insiders were slipping out the back door, while the public bought everything in sight, drunk on the certainty that the good times would never end. I knew the collapse was coming. I could taste it in the air, and still I waited. Day after day, week after week, I sat on my hands and waited, not because I lacked conviction, but because I had finally learned something essential that separates the professional from the amateur. Being right too early is precisely the same as being wrong. In this business, timing is not one important thing among many. It is the only thing. This is what the second stage burns into you. It strips away your compulsion to always be in action, your need to prove yourself with every tick, your addiction to converting every insight into an immediate trade. It teaches you the truth that the market pays you for your patience, and almost never for your activity. And this is exactly why so many men who survive the first stage quietly perish in the second. because this stage does not feel like progress. You have stopped losing money, but you are not making much either. You are sitting still, watching, waiting, letting opportunity after opportunity float past your window. It feels passive. It feels like you are wasting your life, like you aren't even really trading, but you are. You are doing the single most important work a trader can do, which is learning to wait for your pitch. I have told people my whole life that I made my money by sitting, not by thinking, and they never quite believe me. But the big money is never made in the trades you take. It is made in the hundreds of trades you have the discipline to refuse. Every time you pass on a mediocre setup, every time you resist the itch to put money down simply because you are bored, every time you wait for the full alignment of conditions, you are protecting your capital and keeping yourself alive for the one moment when everything lines up and you can strike with everything you have. The discipline of waiting feels like doing nothing at all. In reality, it is everything. It is the exact line that separates the gambler from the trader. The gambler needs action. He needs the electric thrill of having money at risk. The trader needs only profit, and profit is the child of patience. In this second stage, you build your true system, and I do not mean a system of indicators and technical rules, though those have their small place. You build a system of emotional control. You learn to separate what you want to happen from what is actually happening in front of you. You learn to read your own fear and your own greed with the same cold clarity you use to read a chart. And you finally accept that your greatest enemy was never the market, never the other traders, never the shadowy insiders. It was always you, your impatience, your hunger to be proven right, your terror of missing out. And slowly, one disciplined trade at a time, you start to develop something that begins to resemble consistency. You are not crushing the market. You are not making headlines, but you are making money. Small wins that quietly compound on one another. Losses that you keep small and controlled. An equity curve that rises slowly and steadily, reflecting not brilliance, but discipline. The second stage ends the day patience stops feeling like a painful sacrifice and starts feeling like a genuine weapon. When sitting out the mediocre setups no longer floods you with anxiety, but fills you with a quiet confidence. When you finally understand that you do not need to trade every day to be a trader. You only need to be ready when the market at last offers you the one trade you have been waiting for. But even armed with humility and discipline, you are still not where you must be. There is one final stage, the hardest of them all, and it holds a secret that separates the true professionals from every merely competent trader alive. The third stage is becoming the market. After the greatest crash of my era, after I had built my largest fortune by selling the collapse of an entire economy short, men treated me like a prophet. They crowded around me wanting to know how I had seen it coming, how I had found the nerve to bet everything on the ruin of the whole country's prosperity. They believed I had outsmarted the market, that I had beaten it in single combat, and they were completely wrong. I did not beat the market. I became it. This is the final stage, and almost nobody speaks of it, because it is very nearly impossible to put into words. It is not about analysis. It is not even about discipline, though discipline remains the foundation beneath your feet. It is about something far deeper. It is about feeling the market's pulse as though it were the beating of your own heart. About knowing what is going to happen, not because you predicted it with logic, but because you have aligned yourself so completely with the rhythm of price and volume and crowd emotion that you simply move with it instead of against it. In the third stage, you stop fighting. You stop trying to force your will onto the market or bend it to fit your beautiful analysis. You stop caring about being right at all. You surrender, and I do not mean surrender in defeat, but surrender in acceptance. You accept, finally and completely, that the market is smarter than you, larger than you, and more powerful than you will ever be. And strangely, in that surrender, you find total freedom. I remember the first time I truly felt it. I was holding a large position, and the market began to move against me. The first stage, Jesse would have panicked or averaged down, or convinced himself he was right and the whole market was wrong. The second stage, Jesse would have stuck rigidly to his stop-loss, taken the loss on the chin, and gone back to waiting. But in that moment, I felt something entirely different. I felt the market telling me something, not through the numbers or the news, but through the movement itself, through the exact way the price was rejecting my position, the way the action was quietly informing me that I stood on the wrong side of it. And instead of fighting that feeling, or managing it, or arguing it away with reasons, I simply listened. I got out, not at my stop, but before my stop, because I could feel in my body that I was wrong. 3 hours later, that stock collapsed, and I had saved myself a fortune, not by obeying a rule, but by becoming sensitive enough to hear what the market was whispering. This is the third stage. You develop a sixth sense. Call it intuition. Call it pattern recognition operating below the level of conscious thought. Call it whatever you like, but it is real, and it is earned. You begin to feel when you are in sync with the market and when you are fighting it. You begin to know, before any confirmation arrives, whether a trade is going to work. Not because you are psychic, but because you have logged so many thousands of hours, taken so many trades, and survived so many different markets that you have absorbed the rhythm of the whole thing into your nervous system. And here is what nobody warns you about this stage. It is lonely. It is lonely because you can no longer explain your own decisions. When someone asks why you took a trade, or why you got out exactly when you did, you cannot point to a tidy indicator or a written rule. You did it because it felt right, because the market told you to. And that answer sounds like madness to everyone still fighting their way through the first 2 stages. But it is not madness. It is mastery. It is what happens when you have done a thing so many times that it drops below thought and becomes pure instinct. A great pianist does not think about which finger strikes which key. A dancer does not count the steps. And a third-stage trader does not analyze a trade. He feels it. This does not mean you throw away your rules or your discipline. Those remain always, the bedrock beneath everything. But on top of that bedrock, you build something that cannot be taught, cannot be programmed, cannot be back-tested by anyone. You build a living connection to the market itself. The traders who truly last, the ones who pull real money out of the markets across decades rather than months, they are all living in this third stage. They have been humbled, they have learned patience, and then they have transcended the mechanical process of trading altogether and found flow. They have stopped being separate from the market and become part of it. Men used to ask me how I could sit calmly through violent swings that would have terrified any other trader alive. How I could hold a short position while everyone in the room screamed at me to go long. How I always seemed to know when to add to a winner and when to walk away with the profit. I could not explain it to them then, and I can barely explain it to you now. I simply knew, the same way you know when someone is lying to you, or the way you know you are falling in love. Some knowledge does not come from thinking. It rises from somewhere much deeper, somewhere you can only reach by paying the full price to get there. And here is the final truth that Wall Street will never sell you, because there is no money in saying it out loud. You cannot skip these stages. You cannot read a book, buy a course, or follow a guru and leap straight into profitability. You have to lose. You have to fail. You have to endure the slaughter of the first stage, the maddening frustration of the second, and the isolation of the third. There is no path around this crucible. There is only the path straight through the center of the fire. I went broke 4 separate times. 4 times I lost everything I had and started again from nothing. And each time I foolishly believed I had finally learned enough. And each time the market patiently proved to me that I had not. But every time, I came back harder than before, not because I was tougher, or smarter, or more gifted than the men who quit, but simply because I refused to walk away before I had finished the journey. The 3 stages are not a curriculum you complete. They are a furnace. They burn away everything in you that does not work, your false confidence, your impatience, your ego, your childish need to be right, until all that survives the flame is a trader, not a gambler, not a theorist, not a hopeful amateur clutching someone else's system, a trader. And when you finally become one, when you have survived all 3 stages and emerged out the far side, you understand something that changes the way you see your whole life. The money was never really the point. The money is only the score at the end of the game. What you have actually gained is worth immeasurably more than any fortune, because you have learned exactly who you are when everything you own is on the line. You have learned to trust yourself in the teeth of total uncertainty. You have learned to make hard decisions with incomplete information and then live calmly with whatever comes. Those skills are worth more than any pile of money the market could ever hand you. So if you are losing right now, if you are in the first stage getting your teeth kicked down your throat, do not quit. The pain is the lesson. Sit in it and learn it. If you are stuck in the second stage, frustrated that the money isn't coming fast enough, do not abandon your discipline, because the patience you are building right now is the entire edge you will trade on for the rest of your life. And if you are somewhere in between, unsure of where you even fit, understand this. Every master trader who ever drew breath walked this exact road. Every single one. The market does not care about your dreams, your bills, or your timeline. It will take as long as it takes to teach you what you need to know. And your only job is not to rush that process, but to survive it. To stay in the game long enough to complete all 3 stages and become the trader you were capable of becoming all along. I have made millions and lost millions. I have been called the greatest speculator who ever lived, and I have been broke enough to borrow money just to eat. But through every fortune and every ruin, I learned the one secret the market whispers to anyone willing to fall silent and listen. The money does not change you. The journey to earn it does. And those 3 brutal stages are not obstacles standing between you and success. They are the transformation itself. They are how the market turns dreamers into traders, hope into skill, and desperate amateurs into cold professionals. So do not run from the stages. Walk into them. Survive them. Let them burn away everything you don't need. Because on the far side of the pain, past the humility and the patience and the loneliness, something is waiting for you. And it is better than profit. It is mastery. And there is no feeling in this world quite like it. Now do one thing for me. Down in the comments, tell me honestly which stage you are standing in right now. The first, getting humbled by the market. The second, learning to wait and building your discipline. Or have you touched the third, where you are starting to feel the market's rhythm in your own bones? Be honest, because naming where you are is the first real step to moving forward. And if this cut close to the truth, hit that like, share it with a trader who needs to hear it tonight, and subscribe, because I am nowhere near finished teaching you what Wall Street prays you never learn. The market is waiting, and so is the trader you are about to become.